Was there ever a time you're thankful the pandemic happened? What was the reason?
When I woke up 5 minutes before my university classes, happened multiple times, edit. Thanks for the awards and upvotes. Even though I much prefer in person, it's always nice to look at the silver lining in things smiley face.
It's a small thing compared to all the horribleness that happened during the pandemic, but I did feel thankful. My 14-year-old dog tore her CCL the week before everything shut down. The vet said she wasn't a good candidate for surgery because of the risks associated with her age. We didn't know what to do. She couldn't put any weight on it at all. A few days later I lost my job and was staying home all day. I spent a few days researching everything I could about dogs and ligaments, then I got to work. I designed a whole physical therapy routine for my dog and set the plan in motion. And it worked. Within 2 months she was able to walk normally without a limp. Within 4 months she was able to move around like she'd never been injured in the first place. I never would have been able to put in all the time with the physical therapy if I hadn't lost my job, so I can't help but feel a bit thankful. My dog is still around, happy and healthy. She just stole my sock and ran off into the yard. I love that troublemaker.
Did you not see the freeways under lockdown? I will never not miss how light the traffic was.
It gave me time away from school to be admitted into the hospital for more than a month, and it saved my life.
Yes. It made me slow down and reevaluate what I was doing with my life. I cut out people who were dragging me down, and reconnected with old friends through group Zoom calls. Changed jobs. Started taking care of my body and lost 30 pounds, found a new hobby. I do wish I made these changes years ago, instead of waiting for a global health crisis to kick my butt into gear. Edit. Thank you to everyone who took the time to read my comment, and to those who responded. Reading all your responses truly made my day. It's reinforced that we're all in this together, even if we're physically apart, doing the best we can.
It gave me some time to think a lot about myself and where I was going, and I realized I was taking the wrong subject trying to set myself up for a career I didn't want.
Okay, without going into too much, the week lockdown happened, my ex moved out. It was a bad relationship, but I was in denial. So now I was locked inside, with a lot of big feelings and nowhere to go. It forced me to confront myself, a lot of my own mental issues and a lot of my own trauma. I hated it, resisted it and fought it. Eventually though I learned to work on myself slowly, and I don't think that would have happened without lockdown.
It gave me a whole year to spend every day with my senior pup before he crossed the Rainbow Bridge.
More time with my kids and the wife. Also allowed me to spend more time with my brother during his last months before he died of cancer. Time I otherwise would have spent working.
My daughter was born last year. Being able to work from home for a year has given me an opportunity to spend so much time with her that I don't think most fathers have.
I proposed to my girlfriend on March 20th. She said yes. Lockdown happened the following day, so she moved in with me into a small 2-bedroom apartment. That Wednesday, I got laid off from a job I desperately wanted to quit. Since I got laid off and didn't quit, I got enhanced unemployment, which basically meant I got a raise. A couple months later, we got married. Due to COVID regulations, we could only have 10 people at the wedding, which kept the guest list small for a very good reason that everyone understood, and kept our wedding expenses very low. Getting married allowed me to get on my wife's insurance, which was much less expensive than getting it on my own. A little over a month later, I started a job related to pandemic response, which paid very well. I made more during the second half of 2020 than in all of 2019. This income allowed me to save up enough to put a decent down payment on a house, with historically low interest rates. In December, I got another, more stable, job, which required me to work from home. This job pays about the same as the one I had before the pandemic, and it's for a much better company with many more opportunities for advancement. TL, DR, before, single, renting, in debt. After, married, homeowner, with comfortable nest egg.
First child born right at the beginning of it. Being off from work with benefits for months longer than expected gave me so much more time with my child and wife than I ever would have had. Time spent like that is impossible to replicate later.
Working from home.
Was given the opportunity to keep my job, work from home, and move out of state. The only thing keeping me in my home state was my job. Great pay, insane benefits, etc. So when they told me I could get out of Dodge, and keep my spot with the company. I didn't even need to consider.
I am thankful for the quarantine, not the pandemic. I used to think I was introverted until I was left alone with my thoughts for far too long and realized how much I need social interaction in my life.
It made me realize how bad my relationship was. I hate comparing situations. Everyone struggles differently, but he didn't talk to me for the first 6 weeks of the lockdown because his stress was worse than mine. He was at his mom's with his brother, having her cook and clean and basically do everything for him while he played games all day. Meanwhile, I had just moved in my own flat, had no bed and very little furniture, no internet, and I was struggling to get hold of groceries, but despite all that, he had it worse. I realized that I needed to look after myself.
Yes, I'm a major introvert, and for a year and a half I didn't have to make up an excuse as to why I wasn't attending something I was invited to.
Beep, absolutely. I am an English teacher and I have maybe 2 to 4 classes throughout the day. Before, I would have to travel to and from each class and maybe go home in between if there was time. I live in Bogota and it's a big city with no metro and the traffic sucks donkey balls. Now, all my classes are online. I've saved between 3 and 6 hours of travel time each day.
Yes. I got to know my daughter better. We are closer than ever. I got to know my spouse better. He moved out.
I had more of an opportunity to play video games.
I was able to give birth without my family harassing me in the room. They harassed me anyways, but at least I could enjoy my baby in peace.
BPS. I had a taste of remote working and I'm not going back to the office. Frankly, I do 3x as much while I actually work 3x less. I can concentrate on NY work. I can spend hours coding without anyone saying, "Let's go grab some coffee," or "Let's go smoke," or dozen other excuses we used to use to not work. And best thingness, I no longer have to affect morning beat meeting where site manager just talks. She really likes the sound of her own voice.
Yes, the pandemic opened people up to the idea that working at home was feasible, and perhaps desirable. I hope it sparked the idea that some form of universal income may become necessary. The shutdowns impacted people the same way that automation will, and we should be prepared for it.
Yes, I got to keep my son home from school the entire year. We homeschooled, and I spent so much more time with him. We did a lot of fun things during the day, the park, video games, etc., that we wouldn't have got to do otherwise. Also, I got an itch to start working out last summer and have lost almost 50 pounds.
My abusive stepdad caught COVID last April and died a really horrible death. I've been free for over a year now and everything is so much better. I'm grateful that the pandemic happened because it allowed me to live happier than before.
As an autistic person, I was grateful that I, ironically, didn't have to mask and spend all day wasting energy pretending to be neurotypical in order to be accepted by my colleagues. Working from home, I could let myself relax without worrying about being judged for behaviors I can't necessarily control. In a way, when the masks went on, my mask got to come off. I forgot how exhausting it is to suppress all your natural coping mechanisms for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. Edit. I will add that my job is now bringing us back into the office full-time with no consideration of working from home arrangements. I am absolutely terrified of going back to it, honestly.
Before I was about to get expelled for poor attendance, but thanks to the pandemic attendance didn't matter and I was able to graduate.
Stimmy checks cleared my CC debt.
So many times. Before the pandemic, I constantly called in sick at work due to a metabolic disorder I have as well as some mental struggles. Once we started working from home, I was able to start dealing with my health problems much better, so I haven't had to call in sick at all. Also, I have started a few new hobbies during the pandemic, playing the violin and singing, and I now have a new job that's a lot better than the job I had at the start of the pandemic. Lastly, I have been able to reconnect with some friends I hadn't really been in touch with before the pandemic. Overall, this pandemic has actually been good to me.
I know it will be buried, but I really wanted to tell this somewhere, so here we go. I am very anxious. Most probably have social anxiety, but I didn't go to a doctor for a diagnosis. Anyway, in the autumn of 2020 I started high school, and none of my previous classmates were in my class. At the beginning, I had to go physically to school and, even if just half the class was present, we were split in 2 halves and one group went to school and the other took online classes, switching every week. I would come home exhausted. It was a lot of social interaction and new people, so a lot of anxiety, and it was too much. Luckily, I only went for 3 weeks until the COVID situation got worse and we switched to full online. This helped a lot by taking away anxiety-inducing factors like how I look, how I speak and things like that. Also, the interactions, both with teachers and classmates on Discord, didn't feel so direct, so they produced less anxiety. It was also easier to be in a conversation but not saying anything online than physical. One day, a group that formed added me on their Discord, which only contained about 15 people of my class, because they needed one more player in an Among Us game and knew I was a nice guy. Probably because I also shared me homework with people from there a few times. Since then I started to enter their calls and slowly relax around them. After a few months, I could finally feel comfortable around them, and I actually felt like, hey, I actually made some friends. I also went out with them outside a few times, while we weren't in quarantine, which helped me develop even more. Overall, the quarantine and spending time online allowed me to take everything slower and gave me time to feel comfortable around these new people and in these new situations. And here I am now, with only 1 week of school left, as a totally different person than I was 9 months before. I made friends, I grew more social, I kinda discovered my clothing taste. I am still in the process of figuring this out, but I am getting somewhere, and I grew my self-esteem. Sure, COVID wasn't the only thing that helped me achieve this. It took a lot of effort, motivation, hope and support from my sister, but I can't deny that little things like spending time online rather than physical, or a silly game like Among Us helped me start my growing process. There is still more to be done, my development isn't over yet and I still have things to work on, but I am so proud of myself, of the person that I am growing into, and I am so thankful to all the people that helped me get here. If you are in a very low spot in life, remember that seemingly small things can butterfly effect into a huge avalanche of events that positively impact your life. All you have to do is wait to see what tomorrow will bring. I want to end this with a lyric from my favorite artist, that I might also tattoo on myself or something. Lol, hopeless changes over time.
Got braces but wore a mask, sick face, and now I'm pal with my braces.
My mom is 85 and in assisted living in a city 250 miles away. During lockdown I started calling her every day at 11 a.m., and we became closer than we have ever been. She became a close friend. That is quite a gift. She's become a lot more confused lately and is slipping into dementia now. I'm sorry her last coherent year had to be during COVID lockdown, but I am so glad we had our daily chats. We still do, but she is fading now. Love you, Mom.
Ever since it started, people message me more often. I don't really have any close friends, and so the few messages I get are my entire social life.
The fact that I don't have to constantly overwhelm myself with the grind of life. Sure, it meant that I can't go anywhere as conveniently, but I felt like the world slowed down to a pace which I was comfortable with.
I'm not thankful this particular pandemic happened, but it did really open my eyes as to how startlingly far anti-science and anti-intellectualism has taken root in my country. It's reminded me how important voting is, and I've gone from not caring at all about voting to paying attention and voting every time.
Pre-pandemic traffic I commuted like 2.5 hours of commute time one way. During the height of the pandemic I think once I saw like 7 cars total on my commute. My drive was reduced to like an hour and 10 minutes. It was odd to have the turnpike practically to myself. Also because my job has to be done on site, during the pandemic a couple more job openings opened up near me. I got a job near me and don't have to worry about post-pandemic work traffic because my job is 10 minutes away from my house.
Work from home made caring for the newborn easier. Neither myself nor my wife lost income. Being a privileged upper middle class family, we made out pretty well. The family reunion that I really didn't want to go to was cancelled.
I moved in with my boyfriend at the beginning of March 2020 and we were forced to sink or swim with our relationship because we were suddenly both home all of the time in a 2-bedroom apartment. We had to make a lot of fast life changes. He had to quit his job and find a work from home position because I am high risk, for example, and it brought us a lot closer together as a couple. We're planning to get married after the pandemic.
mRNA tech got fast-tracked and might help cure cancer.
I would have never realized how beautiful my own place is as I was always busy traveling away from it.
There was a brief period when there was no traffic.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to subscribe to Upvote for the best quality content every day.